Hi and welcome to Reddit Confessions. If you're new here, grab a drink and settle in. Today's story? Let's just say, silence can scream louder than words. I should have known something was off the moment I heard the shower running. There was no steam on the mirror, no towel on the rack, no extra toothbrush by the sink. Just water, rushing endlessly. And the weird thing is, I live alone. I stood in the hallway, holding a coffee mug I hadn't even taken a sip from yet, listening like some kind of sad detective in pajama pants. My hands were trembling, not out of fear but because I already knew, somehow, what I was about to feel before I opened the bathroom door. And I didn't open it. Not right away. Instead, I walked back to the kitchen, sat on the floor next to the fridge, and just stared at the microwave clock. 6:12 a.m. The time she used to leave. Marin. She disappeared 83 days ago. And I counted. Every single one. I didn't go on Reddit. I didn't message her friends. I didn't post on Facebook asking if anyone had seen her. I didn't want sympathy. I wanted explanation. I wanted her. And now, she was in my bathroom. Like nothing ever happened. I eventually walked back down the hall. Opened the door. She was there. Sitting on the floor. Fully dressed. Not crying. Not shaking. Just staring at the tiles like they were whispering to her. She looked up and smiled. Not the "I'm sorry" smile. Not the "I've made a huge mistake" smile. It was the smile of someone who's about to lie through her teeth and thinks you might just let her. I said nothing. I backed out of the room like it was a crime scene. Because in a way it was. The body was just my trust. Later that morning, she cooked eggs like it was a Sunday in 2019. Asked where the salt was. Mentioned she liked the new lamp in the corner. She even used the word "us" again. "Maybe we could go to the coast this weekend?" she said. My brain did that thing it always does when I get overwhelmed. It turned off the volume and left subtitles on. I saw her lips move, but all I could read was, "Please pretend this never happened." I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I didn't ask where she went or who she was with. But I should have. Because if I had, I might have gotten ahead of what came next. Because 3 days later I got a message. From someone I've never met. A man. He said, "Hey, I don't know who you are to her, but I found this phone number on a slip of paper in her bag. I think you should know. She left in the middle of the night, took my wallet, my car, and told me she was pregnant." I read the message 5 times before my knees gave out. She hadn't just ghosted me. She hadn't just come back to me. She had ghosted him too. And suddenly, I wasn't even sure which version of her I was dealing with anymore. But I knew this much. She disappeared when I needed her most. So now, I was going to return the favor. But not with a dramatic scene. Not with screaming or slammed doors. Just silence. Because the thing about silence? It hurts more when it comes after someone thinks they've been forgiven. I didn't pack a suitcase. I didn't even grab my phone charger. Just took my wallet, keys, and coat, and walked out the front door like I was going for milk. I didn't slam it. I didn't leave a note. The silence I left behind was the loudest thing I've ever done. Her overnight bag was still sitting there next to the door, half-zipped with a corner of a white sweater poking out, like it was waiting for the next man who'd be stupid enough to love her. I drove for hours. No destination. Just kept turning away from the places that felt familiar. I didn't cry, which is weird, because I cry over everything. I once teared up at a dog food commercial. But that morning, something inside me had gone quiet in a way that scared me more than any heartbreak ever had. It was like I'd flatlined emotionally, as if my body knew this wasn't about being sad anymore. This was survival. Somewhere near the coast, I stopped at a diner that looked like it hadn't changed since 1974. It had a cracked jukebox and a waitress named Darla who called me sweetie before I even sat down. I ordered eggs, didn't touch them. I must have looked haunted, because she asked if I was all right. I almost said, "No, my fiancé vanished and returned like a ghost wearing someone else's skin." But instead I just nodded and said, "Yeah, just tired." I booked a motel room with flickering lights and stiff sheets. That night, I opened my laptop and did something I hadn't done since she first vanished. I opened her old Instagram account. It had been deactivated, but somehow now it was back. No posts. Just a new profile photo, her, standing in front of a mountain I didn't recognize, wearing a red beanie I'd never seen before. And then I saw the story highlight labeled, North. Against every part of me that screamed, "Don't do this," I tapped it open. What I saw made my throat close. Clips of her laughing in a cabin, sitting beside a man with a thick beard and a stupid pinecone tattoo. Snow falling outside a frosted window. A cake with blue frosting and the words, "Starting over," written in cursive. Her voice in the background of one video. Sometimes you have to burn the map to find your real direction. I shut the laptop and sat on the motel bed in the dark, feeling like someone had emptied me out and filled the space with smoke. She didn't just leave me. She rebranded. She started over while I was still staring at the front door like a fool. But here's where things start turning sideways. The next morning, I woke to a knock at my motel door. I thought it was housekeeping. I opened it half asleep. But it wasn't a maid. It was the same guy who had texted me 3 days before, the one she apparently left him for. Except now I could see the bruises under his eyes. His left hand was bandaged. He looked like he hadn't slept in a week. "You're Toby?" he asked, voice low, guarded. I nodded slowly. "She's not who you think she is," he said. I wanted to laugh. "Yeah, I'm starting to get that." He didn't smile. Instead, he pulled out his phone and showed me something I'll never be able to unsee. Not because it was graphic, but because it broke what little faith I still had in her. It was a message from her, sent the night before. It said, "He'll probably go to the coast. He always does. He likes places that feel lonely. Try room 12. That one's always available. Good luck." She sent him to find me. I didn't understand it at first. Was she trying to warn me? Set me up? Patch things up by using him like some weird apology messenger? But then he said the part that chilled me. "She told me you were fragile. That if I found you and told you she wanted to come back, you'd make it easy." I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. And I finally croaked. "Did she want to come back?" He shook his head. "She just wanted to know if you'd still wait." That was the moment something broke that hadn't broken before. Not my heart. No, that was old news. What broke was the illusion that any of this had been real. She wasn't coming back. She was just checking to see if she could. And I was done waiting. I didn't tell him to leave. He just stood there awkwardly in the doorway while I sat on the edge of the bed, staring down at the warped motel floor like the answers might be written in the scratches. He eventually mumbled something like, "Sorry for showing up," then turned and left without closing the door fully. I heard his car engine rattle off into the foggy morning, and then it was quiet again. I closed the door gently, locked it, then unlocked it, then locked it again. I don't know why. I guess I just needed to do something that made me feel like I still had control over anything. It hit me then, this was never about her leaving. It was about the way she turned me into a placeholder. A dry run. A test. She wanted to know if I'd still be there after she wandered through her mess of a life, dragging her shame from couch to cabin, man to man. She thought I'd stay rooted like a lighthouse, shining for her to return when the storm passed. But I wasn't a lighthouse. I was a man, tired one. And now, for the first time in months, I felt something besides guilt. I felt disgust. With her. With myself. Mostly myself. I packed my things, not that I had much, threw everything into the back seat of my car and drove until I saw gas stations where the signs buzzed louder than the music in my ears. Somewhere near Eugene, I stopped for gas, and while the pump clicked away, I scrolled through my photos, one thumb flick at a time. There she was, Marin in the sunflower field, Marin holding up our first apartment keys, Marin pretending to eat a giant taco on our anniversary. Felt like I was watching someone else's life. But then I saw a picture I didn't recognize. I hadn't taken it. I hadn't even seen it before. It was a blurry shot of me sleeping on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, hair a mess, face pale and sunken. It had been saved to my phone, no caption, no context. The metadata said it was taken the day before she left. And suddenly, the story I told myself began to crack. She didn't disappear because of an epiphany. She left knowing exactly how broken I was, and she took a photo of it. For what? As a reminder? A trophy? Or proof? I sat there in the car, phone in my hand, heart in my throat, and started to spiral. I didn't know what was real anymore. Had she always been planning to run? Was the entire engagement just some elaborate placeholder until something better came along? And why come back at all? Only to send another man after me like a puppet on her string. I had questions, but I didn't want answers anymore. What I wanted was closure, the real kind. Not the kind you get in a breakup text or a guilt-laced voicemail. I wanted to stand across from her, say nothing, and let her see that I was no longer the version of me she remembered. The one who'd wait. The one who'd beg. So I made a plan. Not revenge. I don't believe in that. But something close. A line in the sand. I drove to our old apartment, the one we never fully moved out of. The lease hadn't been canceled. I knew because I'd kept paying the utilities like an idiot, just in case she came back. I unlocked the door. It smelled like dust and lemon cleaner. Her winter coat was still hanging in the closet. I found her old journal in the bottom drawer of her nightstand. The same one she used to carry everywhere but said I couldn't read. The one with the leather strap. And I read it, page after page. Most of it was harmless, rambling thoughts, grocery lists, scribbled song lyrics. But toward the back, that's where the damage lived. I don't know who I am around him anymore. I hate the way he apologizes before he speaks. He's so soft it makes my skin itch. I don't want to be loved like that. I shut the book, sat there staring at the wall. My fingers clenched around it like it was a grenade. All this time I thought I'd done something wrong by being too weak, too needy, too emotional. But now I realized something else. She hadn't just left because of me. She left because of who she was never willing to become. Loving someone broken doesn't make you strong. It just gives you something to step over when you want to feel taller. I didn't burn the journal. I didn't scream. I didn't leave a message on her voicemail. I took a Polaroid of the journal, just the last page. Then I drove to the same cabin where her Instagram photos had been taken. Took me a full day to track it down. I knew the place. We almost booked it once for a getaway that never happened. She must have remembered that. She always did have a twisted sense of poetry. When I got there, the place was empty, windy, quiet. I slipped the Polaroid under the doormat, along with the keys to our apartment. No note, no explanation, just a message in silence. This chapter is over. Try writing without me next time. I should have felt something after I left the cabin. Maybe relief, maybe even a sliver of pride. But all I felt was hollow, like I dropped a weight I'd been carrying for months, only to realize my arms didn't know how to hang by my sides anymore. The silence wasn't peace, it was noise with the volume turned down. I drove aimlessly again, avoiding highways, staying on back roads where no one could call me, where no familiar signs reminded me of what I lost. I ended up in a quiet town I'd never heard of, Myrtle Creek. A gas station, a bakery, and a thrift shop with sun-bleached mannequins in the window. It was the kind of place people pass through without ever learning the street names. I booked a room above an old bookstore. The floor creaked like it hadn't heard footsteps in years. The bed was stiff, but for the first time in a long while, I slept through the night. But dreams don't care where you are. That night, I dreamed of her again. Not Marin. The other her. The one from the journal. The one who hated the way I hesitated before speaking. The one who watched me cry when my dog died and then called me porcelain for a week after. The one who whispered, "I love you," but blinked too slow, like the words cost her something. In the dream, she stood at the foot of the bed, holding the journal in one hand and a matchbook in the other. She smiled and said, "I always knew you'd read it." I woke up sweating, heart pounding. For a second, I didn't know where I was. Then I saw the cracked ceiling above me, the dusty lamp on the nightstand, and remembered. I had walked away. I was free, or so I thought. 2 days later, I got a voicemail from a number I didn't recognize. It was less than 10 seconds long. No words, just breathing, heavy, shaky. And in the background, a song, Moon River. That was our wedding song. The one we picked together after dancing in our socks in the living room. The one she said made her feel like floating. I played the message 12 times. Same breath, same song. No voice, no explanation. I told myself it was a coincidence. But the next morning, someone slipped a photo under the door of my rented room. No envelope, no message, just a photo. It was of me, standing outside the cabin, dropping the keys and the Polaroid. The angle was high, like from a hill or maybe a drone. But it was clear, too clear. Someone had followed me, and it wasn't just anyone. I knew who took it, because on the back, in her handwriting, unmistakable, looping and strange, were 5 words. Still waiting for your answer. I sat down slowly, like the floor might collapse beneath me. I don't know how long I stared at that handwriting. I had spent months thinking she'd left me, that she ghosted me, lied, moved on. But now, I started to wonder if the version of the story I'd built to protect myself, the clean, simple betrayal narrative, was a lie too. Why did she come back? Why did she send him after me? Why was she still watching? Couldn't breathe. There was a knock at the door. Not fast. Not urgent. Just 1, 2, 3, steady, spaced. Like a metronome. I froze. I didn't say a word. I didn't move. The knock came again. And then a voice. I know you're in there. It was her. Not a memory. Not a dream. Not a message through someone else. It was her. And she had found me. I didn't answer the door. I sat on the edge of the bed, gripping the edge of the mattress so tightly the fabric tore beneath my fingers. Her voice wasn't loud. It didn't tremble or rise like someone desperate. It was calm, steady, almost rehearsed, as if she'd been practicing the moment for weeks. I just want to talk, she said through the door. I didn't know how else to reach you. You wouldn't answer. You left no note. My mouth was dry. I didn't move. Maybe part of me believed that if I stayed silent, she'd vanish again like smoke. But she didn't. She kept talking, soft, slow, chillingly composed. I didn't expect you to find the cabin, she said. But you did. You always figure things out eventually. That sentence was what broke the paralysis. Eventually, like I was some slow puzzle piece she got bored of waiting to fit. My hands stopped shaking, and I stood. I walked to the door. Not because I wanted to open it, but because I needed to see. I looked through the peephole. There she was, Marin, wearing the same gray hoodie I used to sleep in. Her hair was shorter than I remembered. She looked tired, not disheveled, not destroyed, just worn down, like someone who'd finally gotten out of the storm only to realize she didn't know what shelter looked like. And then she did something I didn't expect. She sat down, right there in the hallway, back against the wall, legs folded under her, like she was ready to wait forever. I'm not crazy, she said. I know how this looks. I laughed. A bitter, humorless sound I didn't recognize as my own. She continued, You don't owe me anything, but I think I owe you the truth. All of it. And if, after that, you still want me gone, I'll go. I won't come back. A long silence followed. She didn't move. I didn't either. But the part that rattled me wasn't the plea. It wasn't the audacity of her just showing up again. It was the tone. There was no guilt in her voice. No trembling apology. No familiar cracks. Just purpose. Like she needed to say something, not to fix things, but to finally unload whatever secrets she'd been carrying like bricks in her spine. I opened the door halfway. She didn't flinch. I stepped aside. She rose slowly and walked in without looking around, like she'd already memorized the space from the outside. She sat on the bed, didn't ask permission, didn't remove her hoodie, just folded her hands in her lap and looked at me like she was about to confess a murder. And in a way she was. I never wanted to vanish, she said. I wanted to disappear with you, but you were so busy breaking for everyone else that I couldn't figure out where I fit in your collapse. I frowned. So you left because I was grieving? No, she said. I left because I was selfish. But I stayed gone because I didn't think you'd notice. That hit me like a brick to the chest. I always noticed, I said. That's the problem. I noticed every second you were gone. She nodded, eyes glossy. But she wasn't done. "There's something else," she whispered. "Something I never meant for you to find out. But you deserve to know. Because this whole time, you've been blaming yourself. And it was never you." I sat down across from her, my breath hitching. She reached into her pocket and pulled out an old receipt. Faded, folded, fragile. It was from a pharmacy. Positive pregnancy test. Dated a week before she disappeared. I stared at it. Time folded in on itself. My chest went numb. I couldn't speak. She wiped her eyes and said, barely above a whisper, "It wasn't yours." The silence after her words wasn't like the others. It didn't echo or linger. It hit the room like black ink in clear water, spreading, distorting everything. I didn't speak. I didn't move. My throat closed up, and all I could hear was the ticking of the cheap motel clock on the wall. She sat across from me, back straight, as if she expected me to explode or collapse or both. But I didn't. I just stared at that little scrap of faded paper in her hand. The receipt, the timestamp, the pieces of a truth she had buried for months. And suddenly, everything I thought I understood about what happened. Why she vanished, why she returned, why she said I didn't fit in her collapse. It all twisted into something worse. "I didn't lie to hurt you," she said quietly. "At first, I didn't know what to do. I took the test and I panicked. I wasn't even sure who the father was. But I knew it wasn't you." I swallowed hard, tasting metal in the back of my throat. "Was it him?" I asked, my voice so low I barely recognized it. "The guy who found me?" She shook her head slowly. "No, someone else. Before him." I felt my fingers curl into fists, not from rage but from the sheer, suffocating pressure of trying to stay composed. My skin was cold. My ears rang. "So how many were there, Marin?" I asked. "How many names don't I know?" She looked away. I didn't keep count. I wasn't keeping score. I wasn't proud of any of it. The way she said it, with that detached honesty, made me wonder if she'd rehearsed this moment or if she'd finally run out of space to store her lies. "I thought you loved me," I muttered, not as a question, but as a dying statement. "I did," she said, "but not in the way you loved me. You loved me like I was your entire world. I loved you like you were a safe place to rest." That sentence. That was the moment something broke that hadn't yet broken. Not my heart, that had been slowly dissolving for weeks. Not my pride, that vanished when I first let her back in. No, this was deeper. This was the piece of me that still hoped there was something worth salvaging. She said she loved me like I was a place, a rest stop, and I finally realized I'd never been a partner to her. I'd been a detour. I stood up, dizzy, chest pounding. "You should go," I said. She didn't argue. She just nodded. But then, before she walked out, she said something that made me spin back around. "There's more," she whispered. "I came back because I wanted to tell you before someone else did." I froze. "Tell me what?" She pulled out her phone and tapped through something. Then she handed it to me. A photo of her, pregnant. Not now. Months ago. And beside her was my older sister, smiling, holding her hand on Marin's belly. My knees nearly buckled. What is this?" I gasped. "They were helping me," she said. "I didn't have anyone. She said she'd keep it from you until I figured out how to handle it. But then she got tired of waiting and I think she's about to tell you everything." I stared at the photo, not even blinking. I didn't understand what burned more, the betrayal or the fact that someone in my own bloodline had known about this all along. "She stayed with me after I left," Marin continued. "She didn't judge me. She said, she always knew you deserved better, but that didn't mean you deserved to be destroyed. My sister, the one person I still trusted, helping her, keeping her secret." I handed the phone back to Marin without a word. She looked at me, eyes soft with what might have once been remorse, or maybe just exhaustion. Then she turned and walked out. And as the door closed behind her, I didn't feel relief. I didn't feel closure. I felt rage. Not loud, not explosive. Something quieter, more patient. The kind of rage that waits. because I was done waiting for explanations. Now it was their turn. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't even try. I just sat at the edge of the motel bed, staring at the photo Marin had shown me, her visibly pregnant, my sister standing beside her like some smiling conspirator. I kept asking myself the same question over and over like it was some broken prayer. Why didn't she tell me? But the more I asked it, the more I began to hear the real question buried underneath. Why didn't they think I could handle the truth? By sunrise, I had already packed everything. I didn't know where I was going, but my hands were moving before my thoughts caught up. I left the motel key on the desk, drove without music, without breakfast, without direction. Just me and the sound of the engine humming like it was holding something back too. I ended up in front of my sister's house. Emily, 3 years older, always the smarter one, the cooler one, the one who carried herself like she had already seen the ending to every situation and was too tired to spoil it for the rest of us. We hadn't talked much since our mother passed, but we were still family, or so I thought. I sat in my car outside for maybe 10 minutes, debating whether I was ready to face her. I'd already been knocked over by Marin's truth. I didn't know if I could take another hit, but I couldn't stay quiet anymore. The silence was suffocating. When I knocked, she answered almost immediately, as if she'd been expecting me. She looked surprised, but only for a split second. Then her face returned to that calm, unreadable expression she always wore when she was hiding something. "Toby," she said, like my name tasted like old regret. I didn't say hello. I walked past her and into the house. She didn't stop me. We stood in the kitchen. I didn't sit. I didn't even take off my coat. "You helped her," I said flatly. "You knew. You knew everything." Emily closed the door gently, as if slamming it might wake the lies she'd buried. "It wasn't my secret to tell," she replied. "Are you serious?" I snapped. "She was pregnant by someone else. She ran out on me without a word, and you just—" "What?" Held her hand and took photos like it was a baby shower? She leaned against the counter, crossing her arms. "It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple," I shouted, my voice cracking. "You lied to me. You chose her over your own brother." Emily's lips twitched like she was trying to suppress something. Guilt, maybe, or worse, amusement. "I didn't choose her," she said. "I chose the version of you that wouldn't have survived knowing everything at once." That's when I knew. She didn't just keep the secret. She believed I was too weak to handle it. "I'm not porcelain," I muttered. "I never said you were." "But you thought it," I said. "You all did. You pitted me, treated me like some delicate object that might shatter if reality touched me too hard." She exhaled, long and slow. "You think this was easy for me? Watching you fall apart? Knowing she was out there carrying a child that would never be yours, and still listening to you talk about wedding dates like they meant something? So you just played along? I protected you." "No," I said. "You controlled the damage. You curated the version of pain you thought I could handle." Then I asked her the question I'd been dreading most. "Did she stay with you the whole time?" Emily looked down. "For a while." "Did you help her leave him too? The other guy?" "She didn't need help with that," Emily said. "He was never supposed to know about the baby. She was going to give it up. That was the plan." I felt my stomach twist. "But she didn't." "No," Emily said softly. "She didn't, because I talked her out of it." The room spun. "You what?" I told her she had to stop disappearing, that she had to own the consequences, that she couldn't keep running from the mess she made, or from you. My knees went weak, and I grabbed the back of a chair to steady myself. "So this whole thing, her coming back, was your idea?" "She needed to face it," Emily said. "And you needed to see her for who she really was." I looked at my sister, this woman I had trusted more than anyone, and for the first time in my life, I felt like a stranger in her presence. "You didn't protect me," I whispered. "You used me to teach her a lesson." Emily didn't deny it, and in that silence, I finally understood something that shook me deeper than any betrayal ever had. I was never the center of this story. I was the aftermath, and they had both moved through me like a storm, one seeking shelter, the other seeking resolution, and left me standing in the wreckage with no map, no compass, and no one left to trust. I walked out of the house without another word, and as I closed the door behind me, I felt it. Not rage, not heartbreak, something worse. Clarity. I didn't look back at my sister's house as I walked away. I didn't need to. I had finally learned something most people never do. That closure doesn't come in a conversation, or an apology, or a perfect explanation. Closure comes when you stop waiting for someone else to hand it to you. I drove back to my place. Not the old apartment I'd abandoned months ago, but a tiny cabin I'd found near a lake, the kind with foggy mornings and no cell signal. I'd been renting it month to month since I left everything behind. It wasn't glamorous, but it was quiet. And for the first time, I wasn't scared of quiet. A week passed, then another. No calls, no texts, no mysterious voicemails, no knocks on my door. Just silence, but the kind that heals, not haunts. I picked up painting again. Nothing fancy, just streaks of color on canvas that made no sense to anyone but me. I started running in the mornings, cooking meals from scratch, laughing at bad movies alone, relearning who I was without anyone watching. And then one afternoon, while digging through a box of old photos I hadn't unpacked yet, I found something unexpected. A letter. One I had written to Marin during the weeks after she vanished. A letter I never sent. In it I had written, "If you come back, I'll forgive you. I don't know how, but I will. Because I love you." I stared at those words for a long time, my handwriting, my hurt, frozen in ink. And I realized I didn't feel that way anymore. I didn't want her back. I didn't even need forgiveness. I needed truth, and I had it now. So I burned the letter, not out of anger but as a farewell. The next morning, I woke up and something had shifted. The air felt lighter. The lake outside was glassy and calm. For the first time in a long, long while, I felt okay. And then I did something I hadn't done in months. I called someone. Not Marin. Not Emily. My old friend Reese. The one I ghosted when everything fell apart. The one who'd called 3 times and left voicemails I never answered. When he picked up, he didn't ask questions. He just said, "There you are." And I realized maybe I wasn't as alone as I thought. We talked for hours, laughed, made plans. Real ones, not someday plans. I even told him about the painting. He said he wanted to see it. That night, I looked in the mirror and didn't hate the guy staring back at me. He looked tired, yeah, a little older. But there was something in his eyes I hadn't seen in a long time. Something like peace. So this is where my story ends. Not with some dramatic confrontation. Not with revenge or rage or running. But with stillness. With the realization that the worst thing that ever happened to me didn't destroy me. It rebuilt me. She vanished when I needed her. So I vanished when she begged. And it was the best decision I ever made. Thanks for listening to this story on Reddit Confessions. If you've ever had someone disappear from your life only to reappear when they needed closure, how did you handle it? Drop your experience in the comments. We'd love to hear the most surprising twist you've ever lived through. And remember, sometimes walking away isn't weakness. It's the first real step toward finding yourself again. See you in the next story. Stay strong. Stay real. This is Reddit Confessions.